Today's story will touch your heart. It's about one man and 12 children, a story of kindness, courage, and the meaning of family. Get ready to listen, feel, and be inspired. This is the true power of love. The story: a single man took care of 12 orphans, a shocking yet deeply moving story. In a quiet town, a single man named John stood at a turning point in life. He had always wanted to make a difference, but never imagined his path would lead him here, taking care of 12 abandoned orphans. Each child had faced pain and loss. They had no home, no family, and no one to turn to. But John, with a heart full of compassion, made a life-changing decision. He would give them not just a roof, but a real home, not just food, but comfort, safety, and love. He turned his peaceful little house into a sanctuary full of laughter, learning, and healing. This was no small act. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. A new chapter had begun, and it would change their lives forever. John's decision to care for the orphans was not made lightly. He spent many nights lying awake, his mind filled with questions and fear. Could he really raise 12 children on his own? Could he give them the love, support, and stability they deserved? He wasn't wealthy. He didn't have a big house or a grand plan. All he had was a heart full of compassion. Fear often whispered, "What if you fail them? What if you're not enough?" But deep inside, another voice spoke louder. They don't need perfection. They need someone who cares. He looked at the children and saw more than just orphans. He saw souls longing to belong, to feel safe, to be loved. With trembling hands, but a determined heart, John opened his door, and his life changed forever. He didn't have all the answers, but he had the courage to begin. And sometimes that's all it takes. The first days were anything but easy. 12 children, 12 stories, 12 hearts, each carrying pain, fear, and confusion. Some were silent, hiding behind walls they had built for protection. Others were loud, testing boundaries, seeking attention. John had no manual, no roadmap, but he had patience and an open heart. He spent time learning each child's story, what made them laugh, what made them cry, what helped them feel safe. Slowly he built a routine: meals together, bedtime stories, games and laughter filling the rooms. He cooked with them, listened to their worries, and celebrated every small victory. The house that once echoed with silence now pulsed with life. It wasn't perfect. There were tears, messes, and long nights, but beneath it all was something beautiful taking root: trust. And with trust came hope. As the days turned into weeks, something began to change. The children, once guarded and distant, started to open up, little by little. A smile during breakfast, a shared joke before bed, a quiet child holding John's hand for the first time. Trust wasn't given easily. Many had been hurt before, abandoned, lied to, forgotten. But John didn't rush them. He listened patiently. He showed up every single day. No matter what, he cheered for their small successes: a good grade, a drawing, a full night's sleep without tears. Slowly, they began to see him not just as a caretaker, but as something more: a protector, a teacher, a father. The house was no longer just a shelter. It was becoming a home, a place of laughter, comfort, and connection. And in their eyes, John no longer stood alone. He was part of a family built not by blood, but by love. Life with 12 children was never easy. John faced daily challenges, from morning chaos to emotional meltdowns. There were bills to pay, endless chores, and moments of pure exhaustion. Sometimes he questioned himself. Am I doing enough? Can I keep this going? But just when he felt overwhelmed, one of the children would do something simple. A hug, a thank you, a quiet, I love you. Those moments gave him strength. The children had faced their own battles, but now they weren't fighting alone. They had each other, and they had John. When money was tight, John found creative ways to make it work. Second-hand clothes, homemade meals, community help. When tempers flared or sadness returned, he reminded them gently, "This is your home. You're safe here." They laughed. They cried. They learned. Together, every argument, every breakthrough brought them closer. They were not a perfect family, but they were real, and that made all the difference. Owen knew that love alone wasn't enough. To truly care for the orphans, he had to build a safe and nurturing environment. He reached out to local organizations, seeking support, advice, and resources. Slowly, things began to improve. The children were enrolled in school, given proper meals, and most importantly, they were given hope. But John went further. He encouraged creativity, drawing, painting, music. He wanted them to express what words couldn't. One child found peace in drawing quiet forests. Another sang songs about dreams and stars. John celebrated their uniqueness. He reminded them every day, "You matter. Your voice matters." The house became more than just a shelter. It became a sanctuary, a place where healing could begin. For the first time, the children weren't just surviving. They were growing, exploring, and becoming who they were meant to be. In creating that safe haven, John gave them the most powerful gift of all, the chance to believe in themselves. As time passed, the house began to fill with more than just noise. It filled with memories. John made it a point to celebrate every milestone, no matter how small: a lost tooth, passed exam, a birthday with candles and homemade cake. For children who had once been forgotten, these little celebrations meant everything. They laughed together, cried together, and learned the joy of simply being seen. John kept a wall of drawings, each one a snapshot of their growth. He kept a box of letters, written in shaky handwriting, saying things like, "Thank you for being my family." Each moment, each memory, wove their lives closer together. They were not just surviving anymore. They were living and loving. And in those shared moments, they found something even deeper, a sense of belonging. What once felt impossible was now their everyday reality. Family, full of life and love. Word of John's story began to spread. Neighbors who once passed by in silence now stopped to say hello, and then to help. One brought groceries, another donated clothes. Some came just to play with the children, or read them stories. Slowly, the community began to surround them with warmth. At first, John didn't know how to accept it. He had always done everything alone. But now, he realized he didn't have to. People weren't just giving things. They were giving time, kindness, and care. And the children felt it too. For the first time, they saw that the world outside their home could also be safe, also kind. The laughter grew louder. The walls felt warmer. The community became an extended family, offering support and reminding the children that they were never truly alone. John's quiet act of love had started a ripple. One heart had touched 12 lives, and now those 12 lives were touching even more. Years passed, and life moved on, but not without challenges. One day, John fell seriously ill. He could no longer do everything like before. His energy faded, his hands trembled, and the house grew quieter. But something beautiful happened. The children, now older, stronger, wiser, stepped in. They took care of meals. They cleaned the house. They comforted him, just as he had comforted them so many times before. They didn't hesitate, because to them, John wasn't just a man. He was their father, their hero, their home. The roles had reversed, but the love remained the same. They reminded him to take his medicine, tucked blankets around his legs, and whispered, "We've got you now." And in those quiet moments, John smiled through tears. He realized that what he had built was not just a home, but a legacy, a circle of love that had come full and beautifully around. In the final season of his life, John often sat by the window, watching the children laugh in the garden. His children, his family. He no longer needed to do much. Just being there was enough. Sometimes one of the younger kids would curl up beside him, asking for a story, and he would smile. Once, there was a man who lived alone. He'd begin, until he found 12 reasons to live. And they'd listen, eyes wide, hearts full. His life had not been perfect. There were nights of hunger, days of doubt, and moments of unbearable loneliness. But through it all, he had chosen love, not because it was easy, but because it was right. And in choosing love, he had transformed not just 12 lives, but generations to come. On a quiet evening, with the sun setting golden across the floor, John closed his eyes, peacefully, gratefully, surrounded by the sound of laughter and the warmth of love. His story didn't end there. It lived on, in every child he raised, in every heart he touched, in every act of kindness inspired by his quiet courage. Thank you for listening to this moving story. John's quiet courage and boundless love remind us, family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the hearts we choose to care for. If the story touched you, take a moment to reflect. Is there someone in your life who needs your presence, your warmth, your kindness? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional English listening stories. Let's keep spreading love, one story at a time. Until next time, stay kind, stay human.